Top 10 worst Gen 7 Pokemon. Wow, nice clickbait, SilokHawk.
I know what's wrong with it, but I'm leaving it in.
First, you've got an audio bouncing problem. I had some difficulty hearing what you were saying because you forgot to lower the volume of the portion you were talking over. Second, I agree that lamp shading without resolution is just as much of a problem, but at least the video is indicative of what the title promises and isn't written in a fashion that was specifically designed to piss people off, like Pokemon that shouldn't exist, for example. In this case, the lamp shading is fine.
Do you?
How could this happen to me? I made my mistake.
I personally don't mind you using an overused sound clip like that, but even though I don't get tired of it, you should be careful about it, since this is something that other people will get on your case for doing, since a lot of people have used that song.
The problem people would have with it is being used in a non-creative fashion. If used smartly and cleverly, no one would care as much. Also, the skip effect is just a brief flash of an overscanned skip button. No music, no flashy effects, nothing remotely funny. I'm not asking you to copy my skip shtick. I'm just asking you to add a little pizzazz to your skip. This is still entertainment after all. Some text indicating what you're skipping and why wouldn't hurt either.
And beyond that, I do want to iterate, these entries are based on designs and designs only. So if I end up putting something on this list as a super dark Pokédex entry or whatever the heck, note that I'm only focusing on the appearances of these guys. Because, you know, I'm super shallow or whatever.
And that's where this list begins to fall flat on its face. You're saying these Pokemon are the worst because of designs alone. That's why you should change the title to Top 10 Worst Designed Pokemon.
The design is still a major factor to a Pokemon as well as its appeal. Would you rather have your partner be a Raptor Mantis or a Rock with Arms? I'm assuming what Silokh means by this is that he's not really a competitive player and bases his opinions of a Pokemon primarily on their designs than their types and battle value. A lot of casual players would likely share a similar viewpoint.
Silokh,
Yeah?
are you sure you aren't just making this video to piss people off? Are you sure?
No, I seriously just thought this would be a fun video to make.
Yeah, well then how do you explain that?
Look, I can explain.
Ties are something that are looked down upon by many members of the Countdown community nowadays. I don't really have a problem with ties myself, but when it's a tie between 9 different Pokemon, that's insane.
Well, you can seriously condense it by saying that a lot of players bunch an evolution line as a single Pokemon, since the final stage is often the natural end result most players will seek anyway. I see a Mudkip and think primarily of the Swampert I'm going to get. Things like that are what save commonly mocked Pokemon like Zubat, since Crobat is awesome! Besides, ties like this can work if they share many things in common to justify their place, but none do anything better or worse enough to justify putting any of them higher or lower.
My only problem is, despite thinking the design looks solid enough, does this look like a starter to you? It certainly doesn't to me. It looks like one of the field birds you find early on in the game.
It's an owl, so of course it's going to look like Hoot Hoot. It's like complaining about how Zubat and Woobat look alike. They're fucking bats! Let's go back to the starters then. Pigs, Azalatols, alligators and or crocodiles, foxes... Monkey! What exactly constitutes an authentic starter Pokemon designed to use, Psylocke? Would Pikachu or Eevee count since they're both used as starters and found in the wild depending on the game?
The game literally states that he, quote-unquote, is going through a phase.
Really? You're going to have a long subtitle on the screen for a split second? Do you realize what you're doing? You're making your audience have to work during this video by having to keep rewinding and pausing on the right clip.
That's part of the joke. In the text it outright says at the end, anyways, you can unpause the video now. Love you. Love you too, sweetheart. Wait, did I just say that? Motherfucker!
Also, can I just point out that this thing only has a little more than a 1 out of 10 chance of being a female? Yeah, Miss Popstar over here, most likely a dude.
While I agree with you that this is a problem with Bryony, nearly all starter Pokemon have an 87.5 to 12.5 ratio of being male and female. This would have been a better point if you were to say, this is why the whole starter ratio doesn't work for Poplio, or something like that.
Isn't that what he's getting at in a roundabout way? You don't have to spell everything out to your audience like that.
Hey, stop being sexist. Mermaids can be guys too. No, they can't. Otherwise, you're just called merman. Mermaid is a portmanteau of the words mer and maid. Maid being a word that refers to female sex. Sarah, nobody cares. Then just stop. It's always something with you.
Psylocke, I know you're trying to be funny, but this drags on for way too long. Seriously, you spent about 24 seconds on that Kermit footage. Or should I say Constantine footage because of his shorter collar. Now bear with me. This isn't the only time he has one of those clips go on for too long. But I cut most of them out because I don't want to repeat myself.
For a bit like that, it's honestly not that long, and the pacing's fine enough for it to not feel like it dragged on. If it went on for like 40 seconds to a minute, it'd be one thing.
Oh no. Please don't make a Trump joke. Please don't make a Trump joke. Please don't make a Trump joke!
Trumpy, you can do stupid things!
Also, he evolves in his own Trump.
That's it!
I hate this so much that I'm going to blow up the Realm of Darkness?
And if the design wasn't enough, the thing is also a dragon type. Why? Its type alone made it a meme.
I can understand the whole "it's typing alone made it a meme" point, but to answer your question as to why it's a dragon type, I did some research and it's basically based off the Dracania tree, which contains over 100 types of trees in Hawaii and are called dragon trees.
Its type may be a reference to the Dracana genus. It may also be a pun inspired by the coca, a dragon whose name shares the same origins as the word coconut, and Alolan Exeggutor resembles a coconut tree. So, consider the coconut! Come on, what else am I gonna make that reference?
I think the best part about Alolan Duck Trio, well, besides memes, are the Pokédex entries. And no, Kermit, before you say anything, these didn't factor into the votes, I just thought they were funny.
I'm sorry, what?
These didn't factor into the votes, I just thought they were funny.
Did you just say votes? Are you saying this whole list is based off some kind of contest that you held and asked people to vote on this? But you just said earlier...
So while this may seem needless to most people, I do feel obligated to say this list is based on my opinions. I mean, no shit, right? It is a top 10 after all.
So what is it? Is this your personal opinion? What do people vote on it? The description doesn't explain this, the tarot doesn't explain this, so what am I supposed to think? Your wording of this confuses me to no end.
Come on, Meta, we've all used words before without realizing what they mean in the context we use them in. It's clear that he means that they didn't factor into his thoughts on Alolan Duck Trio.
The entry in Sun says, its shining gold hair provides it with protection. Yeah, those crazy mad defense skills, all in the hair, baby.
While I do agree it's a very lazy design choice, I have an answer to your question of how the hair protects it. It's based on something called Pale's hair. It's supposedly formed from the stretching of basaltic grass from lava. It's not recommended to touch because it's supposedly very sharp. That's where I think they were going with this.
And where Silokh was going with his segment was that Alolan Duck Trio was described as having added protection with its hair, despite still having a pitiful defense stat. To be fair, the added protection could be referring to its tangling hair ability, dropping the opponent's speed when it's hit with a move that makes contact with it. Nothing makes an exciting intro like stoic determination, Sonic blowing through robots, and Indiana Jones looking over a museum. I'm hyped! Okay, in all seriousness, there are some major problems with your intro. First of all, the footage is really inconsistent. Some of your footage has black bars, other bits of footage are cropped just right. Couldn't you at least find footage that was cropped correctly? If you can't, then just find different clips that are more consistent with the rest of your chosen clips' aspect ratios. You aren't Transformers 5.
Second of all, your intro was 49 seconds long. I'm not joking. Intros for these kinds of projects should usually be no more than 30 seconds.
Hey everyone, Rowan and KMO5 here, and here I have another commentary.
Oh damn it, why is your voice so quiet compared to the intro music? Inconsistent audio levels aren't welcomed in 2019.
If I may make a suggestion, turn your narration volume up until it's at least comparable to the audio of the video you're commentating on. And if that still isn't enough, then just record your audio, turn it up, save it as an MP3 file, import said MP3 file, and if it's still not enough, turn it up again until it's as loud as the original audio. That's what I had to do when I did my last commentary on you, Rowan, and that's what I'm doing in this commentary, so the viewers don't have to constantly adjust the volume.
A few moments later.
The video I'm going to commentate on is by CheapShot1750, and his first and only commentary on Game Dude and his review of Sonic 06.
Funny thing about that, Chief Shadow actually did end up doing just one more commentary when he co-opted with Ariana the Echidna, currently known as Chanana Arts, on Joshua 8for28's rant about how Chief Shadow was a stupid, lazy, good-for-nothing recolor. I give evidence, but Ariana deleted it because she wasn't proud of her old commentaries.
And that video by Chief Shadow, or shall I refer to him as Ryan, was already tackled by two commentators who are superior at making commentaries than me back when they still made commentaries. Now, before anyone calls me out and or laugh at me for tackling a video that's about 8 or 9 years old that's already been commentated a long time ago.
Oh my god, this is a massive headache and we haven't even gotten started. The video you're about to cover is as old as Sonic Colors, is barely around, and was covered by people you admit are far better than you at this in every way. You're clearly going through hoops to achieve this, but everything about this scenario makes it all seem doomed for failure.
Especially considering the fact that Ryan took Danny and the other Ryan's criticism after their commentary. I'm basically like Master TV10 when it comes to commentaries. In other words, I'm a rebel at heart. Plus, not all of my points will be carbon cutouts of Danny and Ryan's point when they commentate on well, the other Ryan, and I'll also be commenting on Game View, something that they didn't do. Also, just a heads up, Ryan took his video down after Danny and the other Ryan are working on commenting on the first 3 parts of the commentary.
I appreciate how you're trying to make it easy for people to understand which Ryan is which, but when you keep saying the other Ryan, that actually gets kind of jarring. Especially since calling them both Ryan in some fashion is going to confuse your audience more.
Just refer to them as SS407 in Chief or Supersonic in Chief Shadow or something like that.
Moments later.
Hello again, I'm Chief Shadow the Hedgehog, and you're not.
Nonsensical opening catchphrase is nonsensical. Besides, I've seen some of your other videos and you never said that. So what? Is this your catchphrase you're going to use for commentaries? And the way you chuckled, I guess you're really proud of coming with that phrase. And also, the way you said the catchphrase is also kind of insulting to your viewer as a whole. I'm Chief Shadow the Hedgehog, and you're not. Plus, the chuckle is kind of a sign of mockery.
Okay, no. Chief Shadow wasn't mocking his fans. He was just making a simple joke.
Even if you didn't find it funny, he wasn't necessarily insulting anyone. At least when compared to the insults he shows towards Game Dude in his commentary.
But if you think that was an insult, then you haven't seen anything yet.
More moments later.
In his earlier episodes, he was called the Annoyed Gaming Geek, and this is something I remembered from quite some time now. But he officially changed his name to Game Dude, and I don't think he's worthy of the name Game Dude.
Okay, if you don't think that Alex doesn't deserve to be called the Game Dude, then fine. But are you going to elaborate why you don't think he deserves to be called Game Dude?
It becomes pretty obvious as Chief Shadow points out the amount of flaws in Game Dude's video.
If jumping to conclusions was an Olympic sport, you'd be a gold medalist.
10 seconds later.
Well, I'm gonna take a look into his Sonic 06 review. That's right, I'm doing a commentary.
Okay, I'm just going to bring it up right now. Prior to this commentary, Ryan has not played Sonic 06. Why am I bringing this up? Because Ryan, if you want to show how bad Game Dude is, then don't do a commentary on him reviewing a bad game. Why? Because, well, you'll find out later. I know that most of Game Dude's review are on games you never played and don't really care about, but you can still do a commentary on him reviewing and bashing a good game, or at the very least, a fairly passable game. Or, how about you do a rant on Game Dude rather than a commentary on one of his reviews?
The fact that Chief Shadow hasn't played Sonic 06 doesn't mean much when he can still do several hours of research on the game.
And just because Game Dude's reviewing a bad game doesn't mean Chief can't call him out on it. Someone can still review a bad product poorly.
I'm not going to act like his commentary was exactly the best done on him, but if he finds flaws, he has every right to point them out. Heck, let's use your strange logic against you. What are you doing defending Game Dude? You should commentate on a commentary on a good review. Now do you see how flawed your point is? I'm going to guess that you're saying that because of Shadow Sun 11, when he admitted to doing his Shadow the Hedgehog rant commentary to defend the game.
I've tried to find a Shadow the Hedgehog review so I can rant on it, tell how it's being unfairly treated.
But that doesn't mean this is always the case. Do you want to know what Shadow Sun 11 said in his commentary on Game Dude Sonic Reddit review?
Because as my other commentaries are mainly defending video games, which I like, this time I do a commentary on a review for a game which I personally think is a piece of crap.
So even going by what he said, your point isn't good.
Sonic the Hedgehog is brilliant and...
Okay, Game Dude.
Did your mom ever teach you not to cut someone off mid-sentence? You can completely miss the point of the sentence that way. Wait until you get the full context of what someone is trying to say before you try to disprove them. Lest the remaining context disprove you.
Why are you showing an image of the box art of the Sonic the Hedgehog port on Master System? I got nothing against it. In fact, I haven't even played it, nor do I have anything against the Master System, and I know that there will be a lot of people who own a Master System, but chances are more people would own a Sega Genesis. I know you're trying to say that 2 out of the 3 Sonic games that are titled Sonic the Hedgehog are good games, but still. Also just a heads up, the Master System game is also ported onto the Sega Game Gear. I know that's technically a portable version of the Master System, and the only difference between the port is the screen crunch, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
We don't. You don't even bring up very justified reasons as to why it's wrong for him to bring up the Master System.
Just because more people owned a Genesis than a Master System doesn't mean Sonic on Master System is irrelevant to the discussion, especially since Master System Sonic is a completely different game from Genesis Sonic. But both, as well as 06, officially share the same name.
So was Sonic the Hedgehog, but Sonic the Hedgehog is the absolute worst Sonic game ever made.
Wow, you could not be more wrong there, Game Dude. Okay, I know what you're all thinking. I am bashing on his opinion. It's not that at all. I respect other people's opinions, but here's my problem with this. He's trying to state his opinion as if it was a fact, and that's something I can't accept. He's trying to state that Sonic 06 is the worst Sonic game of all time, which is simply not true.
I know that I haven't said anything for those past few points, but I left them in because, well, remember my point that Ryan shouldn't commentate on Game Dude's Sonic 06 review? Well, here, my point further proves. Now Ryan, I don't like people who state their opinions as facts either, but here, Game Dude's opinion is right, because prior to 2014, Sonic 06 was considered to be the worst Sonic game ever made. I haven't played it either.
What? Didn't you just criticize Chief Shadow for not having played Sonic 06 prior to making his commentary? Yet you yourself admit you haven't played it either, justifying it as having seen enough reviews to know it sucks. Why did you think this hypocrisy was okay?
And besides, a bit later in the commentary, you're going to say that walkthroughs can only get you so far. And yet, we could use that argument against you!
But I've seen people criticizing it, so I don't need to play to know that it's bad. The point is, opinions can go both ways. Yes, it's Game Dude's opinion, but it's also a fact.
Whoa! What did he just say?
Yes, it's Game Dude's opinion, but it's also a fact.
Are you serious? I thought it was bad when you bashed on me for putting Ultra Sun and Moon at the top of my 2017 games list when you commentated on my worst bosses list, but now you came right out and said that the opinion of the general consensus is a fact. Yes, it's a very popular opinion, but saying it's a fact that the game is bad, that just makes you look much more condescending than Chief Shadow in his point about how he was mocking his viewers. That was, without any exaggeration, the absolute worst point I have ever heard from you. It almost made you come off as a bully. It doesn't matter how terrible Sonic 06 is. There's no such thing as a factually bad game.
Besides, I do consider Sonic 06 a bit of a guilty pleasure myself, since I just love the Sonic Adventure gameplay formula so much. 06 forever tainted the public reputation of the series, but it can still be enjoyed for one reason or another over other games in the series.
At the end of the day, one can still find subjective value in something that has a lot of objective problems. That's what guilty pleasures tend to be.
8:01 p.m.
If you look, the game Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis for the Game Boy Advance, there's your worst Sonic game ever made. Not only that, but the game Sonic Labyrinth also sucked. I've heard reviews of both Sonic Genesis and Sonic Labyrinth, and there was not one thing positive I could find from those reviews.
Okay, I have no problem if you think that both Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis for the GBA and Sonic Labyrinth are bad games, but let me guess. You agree with your good friend Tom that Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis is the worst Sonic game ever made. Am I right? Because that's the only evidence I can find of you saying that Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis is the worst Sonic game in your opinion, since judging from your other videos, you own neither a Game Boy Advance nor a Sega Game Gear. Also, I'm surprised that you agree with Tom and said that Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis is the worst Sonic game of all time, and not say that Sonic Heroes is the worst Sonic game of all time. But then again, you do know what opinion means.
Unlike you.
I know Ryan considers Sonic Heroes as his most hated video game.
Evidence? What's that?
You can't just guess that Chief Shadow is only saying this because of Shatsifson 11. The best reason I could come up with is what he said in his top 5 games I used to like but now hate.
So overall, not only is Sonic Heroes the worst game I've ever played, but it's also the #1 game that did not age well for me.
Dude, it was a fucking nightmare. First of all, I suck at hockey. Whoa. Alright, I got this, guys. Back, I got it.
I have no problem with you using Sonic for Hire as your skip card, but this particular segment goes on for a tad too long. Skip cards shouldn't be much more than a few seconds long.
Now,
I know it's literally been 1 second since our last counterpoint, but that was also not very good video editing.
Not only do we see Roshitsu and Supersonic 407's avatars, Shadowstar, and my avatar that you had to crop out at times, you didn't even properly cut out my point. We still heard the very last part of the point I made in that commentary. Okay, so to give context to that point, when I mentioned that Roshitsu and Supersonic 407 did a commentary on Chief Shadow, Shadowstar 1224 did a commentary on their commentary, and that's one of Rowan's sources of footage. Wave also did one of those too, and I commentated Wave's commentary a long time ago.
Back on topic. Normally we wouldn't be harping on this, as there are cases where a brief snippet like that is too brief to cut out. But there were a couple of seconds where you could reasonably cut it out before Game Dude speaks up again.
As retarded as 3 different Sonic games, all with the exact same name is, must this pile of hedgehog shit be one of them?
Okay, this is a completely new game. This has a different storyline. It is not a remake.
Ryan is correct, Game Dude. If it was a remake, then it would mostly be the same game, just with enhanced graphics and or a tweak or two added in.
Did you really just stop the video to agree with Chief Shadow? I can't believe it. You did not just stop the video to agree with Chief Shadow.
I mean, I see that you bring up some more points towards Game Dude in this point, but you could have just cut it right before Chief Shadow interjected. We're not asking you to bring up the same thing Chief brought up, but we just want you to be more consistent with this.
Seriously, Rowan. Next, I suppose you'll be bringing up the old "I'm not repeating myself" card, are you?
About that.
Yay, I can't wait.
Soon after.
Yeah, I can't think of really anything else to say.
You don't have to say you can't really think of much else to say.
Even though your last point was basically you agreeing with Chief Shadow's point, ergo you had very little to add. Well, on to the next part.
Wait, next part? Does Rowan not realize that he can upload videos longer than 15 minutes these days? It's been like that for a long time now. I guess you probably don't want your video to be too long, or are experiencing problems. Wouldn't it hurt to at least explain that in the video, or at least in the description?
3 days later.
Like, what if a shitty Mario game, another shitty Mario game is made, and named Super Mario Brothers? It's a shameful disgrace!
Yeah, Game Dude, what's the point of that small scene where you put in Sonic 06?
It's something a lot of internet reviewers like to do to show them getting started. AVGN does this all the time, and since Game Dude's an AVGN ripoff, of course he'd copy that.
Okay, Shatso11 has stated this in his Shadow the Hedgehog defense rant, and now I'm going to say it. One game will not kill an entire franchise.
I agree with you on the whole, one game will not kill the franchise thing, but Tom wasn't the one who stated it. Someone by the name of Helsing920 did. Tom was just borrowing that point in his defense rant / commentary.
Again, citation needed. Even if that were the case, Helsing doesn't exactly have sole ownership of the phrase, and it's apropos of the situation since 06, while awful, didn't kill the Sonic franchise in the long run.
Even so, the quote has no relevance to Game Dude's point about how the bad game sharing the name of the well-liked first games in the series, though he's arguing about the legacy of the name. I find that it's more about audience confusion when two games share the same name.
For instance, let's talk about Doom. Wait, you mean the original game from 1993 or the new one from 2016?
Later.
But too bad they didn't ride the shit train like everyone else.
Now, how does all the Sonic characters suck? Get into detail. Why do the characters suck?
The way you impatiently ask Ginyu why he thinks Sonic and Tails now suck makes me think that this is your first time watching the video. I know this is kind of an old counterpoint, but how about you just watch the video before deciding to do a commentary on it? Now, I know you're thinking that Ryan only wants answers from Game Dude on why Sonic and Tails sucks because spoilers, the only thing that Game Dude brings up are their new looks. Well, I still feel like bringing this up as it shows how impatient some people are. No offense to you, Ryan.
And you're still recording with a lot of background noise. I thought I told you in my last commentary that you should wait until there's not as much background noise, then record. It gets very distracting.
Tails used to be so cool. As cute and adorable that he was badass.
Game Dude, what's the point of that zoom in? To further prove how bad ASS Tails is?
Yes. He zooms into the billboard to highlight how, in Sonic Adventure 2, Tails' badass cred went up since he's considered an outlaw at the time.
Moments later.
And that was his charm. But he's not a super powerful fox anymore.
Again, how is Tails super powerful? Get into depth.
Now repeating myself.
I just had to open my mouth. Rowan, did you not learn from the last time I commentated on you? People don't need to say they won't repeat themselves. It just ends up making the video longer than it needs to be, and your commentary is already long as it is.
This is something the commentary community stopped doing years ago. That's one of the things we have skip cards for. If you have a point you'd be repeating yourself on, just skip the segment, because your other time making that point would also be referring to that time.
What makes this even worse is that you even address it in your Roshizu tells everyone to stop videos. Garbage being rained on me is already too much. You really need to make an already bad situation even worse?
Flip over to what I said about the GBA having a limitation because I refuse to repeat myself.
For the last fucking time, stop saying
how you won't repeat yourself.
Basically, you poked fun at your own mistake, used a clip from my commentary on you,
implying that you addressed that it was a problem on your end, but then just did it anyway.
A little later.
Because like Sonic?
Sorry about that, but man, Game Dude, what an epic fail you just shown there. Okay, I'm going to start a tally on every time Game Dude dies in a failing way.
How is the death shown particularly ridiculous? For all you know, it could be an intentional fail to overemphasize how bad the game is, or even prove his point that neither Tails or Sonic can swim.
And for the record, Rowan just counts whenever Game Dude dies, rather than focus on what deaths were particularly fail-worthy, flanderizing the gag in the same commentary.
12 seconds later.
He can only attack by throwing dummy ring bombs. It's so stupid.
Okay, now Shaxelson11 described this in his Shadow the Hedgehog defense rant, but I'm gonna say, how come that nobody complained about the use of the dummy ring bombs in Sonic Heroes, used by both Tails and Rouge, when they complain about it here in this game? It doesn't make any sense. Don't go blaming this game just because it uses the same thing.
First off, I've seen both parts of Tom's defense rant and I never heard him say that no one complained about the use of the dummy ring bombs in Sonic Heroes and yet complained about their use in 06. Maybe you're getting your videos mixed up. And secondly, I haven't played Sonic Heroes either, but from what I can get from Rashitsu, no one complained about the use of the dummy ring bombs in Heroes because they were rarely used. In 06, they're basically Tails' only means of attack.
I hate to repeat a point from my last commentary, but Game Dude still complained about it in his Sonic Heroes review.
Throwing dummy rings is stupid and awkward. Why are they infinitely stored up as bombs? Why can you go through them? Why can't you move them? And why can't you just recollect them, but not raise the ring count?
Later.
Look, bullets are flying up my ass.
If I imagine bullets flying up your ass, I would see rapid fire. But the fact that I don't see any bullets being fired just proves you're wrong.
Can we hear what Ginju said before he said that bullets are flying up his rear end?
Jumping into the vehicle, because sometimes the buttons won't respond.
I'm just gonna throw this out there, Rowan. That gap in the audio was really bad.
I understand you were using footage from Shadowstar's commentary, as you said in the opening to this, but you could have spliced in part 2 of my commentary. I mean, you did that in some of the other points in the commentary, as shown by the subtitle at an earlier point in the commentary, so why couldn't you have done that here too?
Do you see that footage? Do you see bullets hitting Shadow, triggering the invisibility frame? Yeah, I think that's what Game Dude meant.
Well, you don't have to say let's hear what Game Dude said again, because it's what he shows that proves Chief Shadow wrong, not what he says.
2 very boring minutes later.
Once they climb into a wall, they're like permanently stuck.
Interesting. I didn't know the PS3 had winter games on it. And yes, I stole another line from Tom. Please don't sue! Crap, another joke stolen from Tom.
Try holding the button.
You haven't even played the game, so how would you know that holding the button will help you get unstuck? Yes, I know, there's walkthroughs to get information on a game, but in this situation, looking up a walkthrough can only get you so far. Instead, look up a game's instructions online.
I can assure you that holding the button doesn't work any better than mashing it. I assume the idea is that he's sticking to the wall repeatedly because of the mashing, even though that's not how the wall climbing works.
Now, remember when Sonic didn't suck, and how every single square inch was enriched with majestic dreamlike atmospheres beyond imagination? That was a long time ago.
Why does everybody get so hard about this game and saying that this is the death of Sonic?
Because this game was supposed to be Sonic's 15th birthday game, and instead, Sega blew it. And hey, that's not to say that everyone says that Sonic 06 is the death of Sonic. Some people actually like Sonic 06 and don't think it killed the series. Like Matt said in his commentary on the Mountie, whether one game will kill the franchise or not is a matter of opinion. Some people might think Sonic 06 is the death of the Sonic series, some may not.
3 things to say. A. Just because Chief Shadow said everyone doesn't mean he literally means everyone.
B. Didn't you say earlier that it was a fact that Sonic 06 is a bad game, and now you're saying people can disagree with that notion? My upload schedule is more consistent right now.
And C. Yes, I said whether one game will kill the franchise or not is a matter of opinion in my commentary I did on Wave. But that was also a very bad point I made. You need to see how other games of the franchise play out before assuming a franchise is ruined because of it.
Just look at Devil May Cry. Sure, it seemed like the Ninja Theory reboot killed the series in its tracks, but the recent release of Devil May Cry 5 proves that it did not. It is true that it is a matter of opinion in some respects, but you need to have actual facts to back up your opinion.
2 very boring minutes later.
But this is a hideous pile of fucking shit, and having to return to it is the biggest waste of time.
This is probably the biggest failure review game, dude, because I'm pretty sure it's rare to die on a hub world.
Oh, then you're going to love the Banjo-Kazooie games.
Okay, you need to explain a little bit more on why Soliana sucks. Okay, all I'm getting is you just hating on it. You need them to go more in depth. Elaborate, motherfucker.
Okay, I understand about elaborating on why Soliana sucks, but saying something sucks and hating on something, well, I know that half the time, saying something sucks is a fact.
And there you go again, going back and forth. You say it's a fact, then you say it's an opinion, then you go back to making that outright false claim that's a fact.
Is this commentary almost over yet?
Unfortunately, no. But at least we're getting close to the halfway point. I mean, we are done with the second part, and there's still 3 left.
I think I need to lie down for a bit.
It was your idea to make this whole commentary be in one part, wasn't it?
You're right. Fine, let's move on.
1 week later.
I do you this favor, and now you owe me a lot of money. Money that you're gonna have to work off.
Shitballs.
We have nothing to say about most of the skip card, except for this last sentence. Deformed penguins?
We have no idea what penguins you've been looking at then. Danny DeVito in Batman Returns, maybe?
Now, the humans are monstrosities, don't belong in the Sonic universe, and need to be massacred immediately.
God, why is it that people don't complain about the humans in Sonic Adventure 2, and Shadow the Hedgehog, and yet they complain about the humans appearing in Sonic 06? This makes no sense whatsoever.
I know I'm using a point from Danny and the other Ryan, but in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 and Shadow the Hedgehog, interacting with them are optional. While in Sonic 06, interacting with them is mandatory in order to progress through the game.
And I know I'm using a point from myself that I made in my last commentary, but in Sonic Adventure 1, they were recommended to talk to if you want to know where to go. In Adventure 2, we saw them in some cutscenes. And in Shadow the Hedgehog, which I should have brought up then, there were some human bosses.
Plus, while the irrelevance of the human characters in those games were likely part of it, I think it's also because the graphics weren't good enough to indicate that realistic human designs were what they were going for, leaving a bit of stylization to them compared to 06. It didn't stick out as badly.
They're absolutely retarded.
Maybe they didn't have the budget to try to hire other voice actors to do the townspeople.
Or, you know, the game is rushed, because even if Sega and Sonic Team didn't have the budget, the least they could do is use their voice team that they do have to record lines for the townspeople. It may sound lazy, but still, that's a convenient way. Heck, the townspeople have voices, so why couldn't the voices behind those people record the lines? Oh wait, that's right, the game was rushed. And also to both of you, noises don't really determine how retarded someone is. I mean, yes, it's an immediate problem, but other main factors to make someone retarded is their movements and what they say. Though to be fair, in the first voice game you showed, the boy was moving in a retarded way.
Nice going, Rowan. You literally just destroyed your own point about how noises don't determine how stupid someone is.
And even if you didn't, Game Dude was saying that to be dramatic. Besides, the second person was moving like a zombie, so Game Dude's technically right about that one.
Later.
Everyone knows you can't have a Sonic game without an accordion player.
Okay, you said in an earlier point that the humans need to be massacred immediately, and yet you're just going out to say that every Sonic game needs an accordion player?
Why are you taking everything he's saying so literally? It's clear he's just trying to make a joke. Whether you think it's funny or not is a matter of opinion, but it's so obvious that it was not supposed to be taken seriously.
I know I'm using your clip, Danny, but your counterpoint against Ryan's statement here is so epic, I had to play it.
Can't you find some other way to respond to the point other than just literally letting the other commentary play out?
It can even be as simple as, he's obviously being sarcastic about that.
Now, the worst of them all is Elise. This half-white, half-orange slut shares a romantic relationship with Sonic.
How is she a
freaking slut! Go in depth on why Elise is a freaking slut. I do not see a slut in Elise.
Your opinion.
But Chief Shadow's point is that Game Dude should elaborate as to how Elise is one.
Also, Elise would need to be quite promiscuous to actually be considered one, something that clearly wouldn't be in an E10 plus game. In this case, slut is used as a baseless derogatory insult. This isn't an opinion thing.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
That needs to go back to Final Fantasy where she came from.
If you're wondering what Game Dude's talking about, he's saying that Elise is a Final Fantasy reject. Just to let you guys know, since Ryan cut the first few seconds of the clip I showed you out, this is another part of the video where you shouldn't cut off Game Dude's sentence. Otherwise, people like me don't know what Game Dude's talking about when he brought Final Fantasy.
Yeah, most people would know what Game Dude means by needs to go back to Final Fantasy.
He even said where she came from, and Elise was the only girl in the footage he was showing at the time. So, what else would people think he meant? Some random butterfly?
The joke doesn't need that much context. She was designed more like a Final Fantasy character than a Sonic character. End of story.
In this one, all you have to do is keep talking to the first person you see, and that's it. Nothing else.
Okay, that's maybe a point there. I mean...
Wait, I means? Don't you mean I mean?
Because poor literacy is cool.
Really? You're getting annoyed by a minor slip of the tongue? I mean, we're also nitpicking in some cases, but point still remains.
Later.
The graphics are realistically ugly when they should be stunningly cartoonish.
Okay, this game was released for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. Of course the graphics are going to be realistic, and I don't find the graphics too bad.
Once
if you
again,
want
your
cartoon graphics,
opinion.
play on the Wii.
Okay, I know I'm using another point from Danny, but just because the Wii has a lot of cartoony looking games and it's a family friendly console doesn't mean it's only restricted to only cartoony graphics. Take The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess for example.
Except he never really stated that the Wii can only have cartoony graphics. He only said to play on the Wii if he wants them, since the Wii, being less powerful, had more stylized cartoony games than realistic ones.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Know what? This doesn't count for the tally.
How so? I don't see how it wouldn't count for the tally. I guess you're trying to say it's the camera's fault, but you could have explained that.
Besides, you just end up counting random deaths for the tally anyway, no matter how much of a fail they appear to be.
At least the music matches the sceneries.
Oh, thank you. At least that's one decent thing about the game. The music's incredible.
He only said that the music matches the sceneries. He never said that they were good in any form.
Matching the scenery isn't a way of expressing the music's good qualities? Sure, music can match the scenery and still be bad, but the matching is still a compliment.
A backhanded compliment, but still a compliment.
Moments later.
The collision detection sucks.
Hey, play Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis. That game has worse collision detection.
Question. What review of Sonic Genesis did you see where the person reviewing it said that the game had worse collision detection than Sonic 06?
It's honestly hard to make out what Chief Shadow said, but it sounds a lot like he's saying he's played Sonic Genesis. So if he's played the game, he'd know how bad the collision detection is there, and he never said he knew of it from a review.
He also could have said, go play Sonic Genesis. And as for proof, Brain Scratch Commentaries is final part of the Sonic Genesis playthrough, where Johnny dies by a clipping issue during the final boss that didn't exist in the original version.
What?!
I'll just watch that LP to see what he means.
Meanwhile, back in the lowlands.
Instead of the robots resembling animals like they should, they resemble unwanted crap deleted from Metroid Prime.
Why are you comparing Sonic 06 to Metroid Prime?
He's only comparing the enemies in the game to enemies in Metroid Prime. He's not comparing the game itself to Metroid Prime. Basically, he said that the enemies in Sonic 06 resembles Metroid Prime rejects.
They're still a part of the game, so Game Dude is still comparing the game to Metroid Prime by saying they have similar enemy designs.
I'll admit that I think Chief Shadow is making a big deal out of nothing, but he's still right in saying that Game Dude's comparing them.
Later.
Some of the rings are impossible to get. They wouldn't be so difficult if the camera didn't change angles.
Not even a few seconds ago, you said that the rings are impossible to get, and now you're saying that they're difficult to get? Impossible and difficult aren't the same thing, unless you're using another hyperbole.
Oh my god, who the hell
cares?
And what if he is making a hyperbole? Then what's the problem?
What's wrong with making a hyperbole? It's meant to make the video more dramatic for the sake of entertainment. Granted, Game Dude's video was really bad.
Well, I'm kinda neutral on it.
Anyways, Rowan, if you don't have a problem with Game Dude's hyperbole, then your points are very easy to misinterpret.
You know how in the description of your generic person who misinterprets things gets owned, where you said this because I was misinterpreting things you said? Well, maybe I wouldn't have if your points weren't so hard to interpret correctly.
So, shall we move on to part 4?
Please do so.
3 weeks later.
Or if the controls weren't so bad. Yes! No! Fuck nozzle!
Doesn't count for a tally either.
I'd be able to know what you said if you lowered the volume of the clip you're talking over.
I can make out what he said. You were saying that doesn't count for the tally either, but still.
Okay, first of all, I am forced to play this.
To quote Meta in his first Quick Crack Reviews commentary, well, okay.
I appreciate the shout out to me, but as I said last time I commentated on you, unless you count my triple shot, you don't have to quote someone when you're making the simplest of points.
There's really no reason to do it unless it's a point you don't hear very often.
Later.
Now look at this! Sonic outruns this orca, jumps on flying pieces of wood.
Okay, you can't deny that looks awesome.
Game Dude wasn't saying it doesn't look awesome. He's building up to his next point.
Besides, you know how you keep saying it's Chief Shadow's opinion in your commentary? Well, it's Game Dude's opinion whether or not jumping on flying pieces of wood looks awesome.
Jumps on the orca's fin.
I think you meant cling onto the orca's fin. You can't jump onto an orca's fin.
Looks like Sonic jumped from the broken wood onto the orca's fin to me.
And now logically, you'd assume that Jackie Chan's gonna jump to that nearby island.
Why are you comparing Sonic to Jackie Chan? You not being Ryan.
He means to mock Sonic for the crazy shit he just pulled by comparing him to Jackie Chan. Kinda like when people remark, "No shit, Sherlock," or something like that. But as the Joker once said, if you have to explain the joke, there is no joke!
Eventually.
It just can't!
If you put your mind into something long enough, yes it can.
Okay, I'll put my mind to swimming to the sun, telekinetically lifting Jupiter, and making Half-Life 3 happen. By your logic, that should all be possible!
But no, instead, he clings onto the fin like a frightened cat.
Wait, fighting cat?
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
Sorry for playing that clip, it's just... Game Dude, you can't just throw in random words you created without enough meaning to them, unless they're related to swears. Roll down you're not, Game Dude. Roll down you're not.
It took me a long time to hear what Game Dude was saying too, but he said frightened cat. As in, Sonic is clinging onto the orca for dear life, especially considering the fact that he can't swim.
And now Tails has to save him. It's the lamest excuse to force you to play as Tails, who should have been following my ass to begin with.
Hey, the characters appeared out of nowhere in Shadow the Hedgehog, and nobody's complaining about that.
I can't believe that I'm using another line from the other Ryan, but the reason no one complained about the characters appearing out of nowhere in Shadow the Hedgehog is because they weren't playable.
First, by technicality, since you can control them with a second controller plugged in, yes they were.
Second, Game Dude was complaining about Tails not following him like in Sonic 2, something the other characters in Shadow the Hedgehog did all the time.
Okay, why is there even a gate here? Am I in a fucking aquarium? And why was it left open to begin with? Now look at that! It doesn't even fully close! Why doesn't the stupid orca just swim underneath?
A point for Oliver and Tom, it can't. Sure, it looks like the orca can swim under the gate, but its fin is blocking the gap between the gate and the ocean floor.
Perhaps, but that doesn't explain why the orca couldn't free willy its ass over the rest of the barrier.
Nothing makes any logical sense.
Okay, you don't need logic in video games.
Where is the logic in that? I need logic in my video game.
Okay, I have no problem with you using that Shadowblade XA clip as a joke. Yes, I know his name, but the way you use a clip of him saying, I need logic in my video game. I'm sorry, even if it was a joke, it kinda felt to me you contradicted yourself on the whole, you don't need logic in video games thing.
How? No, seriously, how would that contradict his point?
In the clip he played, Shadowblaze was being sarcastic.
Duh! If anything, your point is the one being contradicted, since you criticized Chief Shadow for taking things too literally.
Why were the other orcas trying to escape?
Are you only assuming that there are more orcas because of the reused orca model? But then again, I can't be wrong, and there are a few more orcas in that perimeter.
Then look it up. Watch a playthrough of the level. This clearly shows that you don't know what you're talking about.
A few moments later.
And why didn't Sonic try to set them free instead of keeping them in prison?
What the fuck are you talking about?
Are you asking why didn't Sonic try and set the orca free instead of keeping it in prison?
Yes. Everything you just said pretty much explains everything.
I mean, what an asshole!
What a-hole? Don't you mean, what an a-hole?
I'll admit, that confused me for a while too, but he did. Let's play that sound clip again.
I mean, what an asshole!
Granted, he was talking a bit too fast, but he did say what you said he was supposed to say. What an asshole!
Because...
Nope, not playing that joke 2 times in this commentary. First time is enough. But anyways, GameDude, I think you meant to say an a-hole, not what a-hole. But then again, this is GameDude we're talking about. He also have a bad habit of having poor grammar.
Grammar? The grammar Nazi can't even pronounce grammar. Ugh. At least it's almost over.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Why doesn't Sonic jump away like he did before a partially closed gate?
Because A, if Sonic tried to jump above the gate, he would smack into it. And B, if Sonic tried to jump under the gate, he would bump his head. Plus, the orca is flailing about with no border, so even if the gate isn't there, jumping out of the orca's perimeter would be hard for Sonic.
He can just hang on to the orca until it passes the gate, and then he can jump off without concern.
I assume failing to keep the orca in that area is what makes that a failed state. For what reason, only the developers know.
One little boost to the surface later.
1 up? What's wrong with this?
Are you seriously complaining about the icon that represents the 1-up? Who frickin' cares? It means that you gain an extra life. It doesn't matter if it says 1-up or has Sonic's head.
Well, he is GameDude, aka Captain Nitpick.
Look who's talking!
Please. Also, even if that 1-up bit was just a nitpick, there are some people who doesn't like it when something in the game deviates from the classics, major or not.
This one is just plain fucking stupid.
And I die 2 seconds later?
Isn't that a death that happens to a lot of players? It's only avoided by holding forward during the mid-air part, but since the game is making you move forward automatically before then, you wouldn't know that the first time or two.
You're doing it wrong!
Why are they replaced by empty containers?
I think you meant to say, wait a minute, wrong avatar. There we go.
This is bad comedy.
Can you do the rest of the commentary for me, Galvatron? Alright, it's just a clip.
Later.
Okay, so I beat the level, but why does Sonic stop and pose in the middle of the chase?
That's the results! That is to show how well you did.
That doesn't debunk GameDude's argument about why Sonic is posing instead of, oh I don't know, chasing after Eggman's aircraft! I'm pretty sure it's still flying in the air.
Well, that's from a practical point of view. Sonic only stops in gameplay, but story-wise he is still chasing the egg carrier.
Not that it matters since it gets away in the very next scene anyway. Don't you love it when a level is pointless?
A little later.
It's like riding a unicycle wearing a sumo suit moving a horse on a baby stroller through a bunch of winding hills.
Wait, blinding hills?
English, motherfucker!
Must not play Pulp Fiction clip twice in this commentary, especially twice in one part.
He said winding hills. Get your ears clean next time.
Actually, now that you mention it, it does sound like he's saying blinding hills.
12 seconds later.
And that's actually worse because, well, they didn't even try!
Didn't even try what? Again, you have bad grammar, GameDude.
Didn't even try providing context to why you're playing as Tails during White Acropolis. It's not hard to reverse the footage to regain the context that was lost.
Also, you sure are fine with repeating yourself with a bad grammar point.
One frozen wasteland later.
Now, this is where the game really takes it up the ass. Dying is easier than the kindergarten math test. Believe me.
Okay, I will admit that looks like the most challenging and probably the most frustrating part of the entire game. But all you need to do is just keep...
Thank you for restating what we already know!
Are we at Rowan's final part yet?
Don't worry, we are now. Thankfully, it's only a few minutes long.
Thank goodness.
3 days later.
And ironically, even the rings, because when you magically glide through them, the straightforward momentum hurls you into even more objects.
Okay, are you sure you're running normally, or are you using a gizmo you brought from the store? Like I said before, haven't played a game. In other words, I can't tell.
I can assure you it is that difficult to keep yourself steady in these Mach speed sections.
Also, if you stay too close to the edges, you die.
Yes, I count those as separate deaths. Got a problem with that?
Yes, we do, because all this counter gag, and all counter gags for that matter, achieves is telling us that Game Dude died a lot. I personally don't really mind counter gags all that much, but still.
I can get the same effect from listening to Another One Bites the Dust, which sounds like a metaphor for my brain cells right now.
If you jump too early, you die. If you jump too late, you die. And because you can only jump straight, if you jump at the wrong angle, you die.
Okay, now it's just dragging things out. Overused Monty Python, get on with it, clip!
Well, I do like your uses of the Castlevania death theme. Playing it over and over again, a few seconds apart from each other, it starts to get annoying. Besides, it prolongs this video even more, as if your commentary wasn't already long enough. So maybe you could just speed up the sound clips.
Or maybe shorten the death clips and play the sounds closer to each other, kinda like the AVGN episode in Castlevania 3.
This fucker's got no mercy.
Although then we'd be complaining about you plagiarizing the nerd, so it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
2 very boring minutes later.
And now, time for my final thoughts, starting with Game Dude. Well, nothing much needs to be said about your video, but I don't hate you like many people on the internet do, so I really suggest you to be more careful with your grammar mistakes. But then again, why do I have a feeling that you won't take my advice?
Maybe it's because he's long gone now? I mean, it's still unclear if it's okay to commentate on really old videos or not, but don't act like he's still here.
Later.
Don't go for a review about a game that's universally hated, otherwise people would think that you're defending it. I know you're not doing commentaries anymore, and I do respect your decision.
Then why are you giving him commentary advice when he's not doing it anymore? This commentary was effectively dead air!
And that concludes my first real second-degree commentary, and my first commentary without Meta527II involved. As usual, feel free to comment or do a commentary, if you're fast enough.
Trust me, this one took a lot of patience to script. And also, what do you mean, if you're fast enough? Do you mean before your commentary becomes outdated? If so, then that's rich coming from the guy who's commentating on a 9-year-old video! Your too slow doesn't even begin to cover what was wrong with your statement.
Now, like I said, it's still unclear if it's okay or not, but that statement you made was hypocritical.